Hi guys, how are you doing? We're back here and today we're going to continue talking about pronunciation itself. As you all know, pronunciation is the first impression to pass on to someone. And today we are going to continue with ED, but you have already explained the ED. Are you going to do the same thing? But I am going to explain something else. You're going to see, take it easy. You're going to see how we can really combine the regular verb in the past with preposition. Well, everyone knows, everyone calls that phrasal verbs. We're going to see how we can really combine the sound or ED and prepositions. And then we're going to see also when you pronounce the ED form with object pronoun and preposition. Because you know what? Sometimes people say, no, native speakers, they don't use the past tense. They do. The problem because they're not familiar with the sound. You're not familiar when they use the regular verb plus the preposition. Do you know what? This combination can be sounded as a new word. And that's why sometimes when you do a listen exercise, for example, we say, all right, so we're going to have a listening, and normally students say, teacher. That's the way people call like. Let me tell you something that I remember here right now. Do you know that in the States, you should not call the teacher? It's true. Here in Brazil, it's okay, I accept, but it's not true. You don't say teacher. No. If you want to be very formal, you have to go by Mr. and my last name, Mr. Fabio. Sorry, my last name, Mr. Alves. Sorry, Mr. Silva, because my full name is Fabio Alves da Silva. So if you want to be formal, Mr. Silva. That's the way. Well, nowadays people use even the first name, which is not really grammatically speaking correct. So normally people say, oh, Mr. Fabio, Mr., but you never say teacher. Teacher, I don't know why. People always call teachers by their occupation. I don't see people say lawyers, doctors, but that's okay. Here in Brazil, you can't say teacher. But then you can say, all right, I have a question to ask. You said that you're going to use the ED plus the preposition. All right. And I should really pronounce this. Is that true? Yeah. And I was telling you that when I have a listening, normally when I do not say what the listening is about, is also a way to test the student's understanding. They always say, oh, I didn't understand much. Oh, I just understood 10, 15%. But why you think students sometimes have problems with the listening? Well, the answer is, first of all, they don't have a lot of practices on their listening skills. Second of all, because the students want to learn with their eyes. And you need to learn a language with with your ears. Well, actually, you can use all the senses. You can learn with the eyes too. But mainly, focus on the listening. This is pretty much the same as in Portuguese. You spend like time and time to understand Portuguese, and they start saying sentences, words, and blah, blah, blah. This is the other way around. Words and sentences and blah, 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 blah. That's the way. So in English, it's not different. It should be the same. Of course, you can learn with the eyes. But when you do a listening activity, you need to be focused on what people say. That's the point. So what happens is that students say, oh, I don't understand. I just understood 10, 15%. And then what I do basically is I repeat the same listening. But the second time I repeat the listening, I ask them to open their books or follow the listening script or whatever. And then they are going to listen and read. Do you know what happens? Normally, the student that normally say, oh, I just understood 10, 15%, these students really jump to 100%. Sometimes they don't have problem at all. And then my question is, why is that? Because when you just listen, if you don't have the technique of connecting the words or compress the words that normally people say, as we always say, you can't understand. When you read, you can see the word written down separately, for sure. But when you speak, you connect them. So like a very simple word, like a very simple example. It's not really the past tense yet. But if, for example, if I say, do it. For some students, this do it, they might think that it's a new word, which actually is not. I'm saying do, and the pronoun, it. But when you speak, you say do it. As, oh, you have a dream? Yeah, go for it. I say go for it. I'm not saying eat. Go for it. So you combine the sound. And that's why sometimes you think it's a new word. But when you just follow the listening script, you can see that's not a new word. You gotta really practice your listening a little bit more so that you're going to be familiar with the sound or the combination of words, this kind of stuff. So you need to be really attentive to the way the words are connected in terms of pronunciation. That is also another thing that I would like to say. One of the reasons I always say to the students that sometimes I don't like when my students put subtitles in English, it's exactly this. Because when you put the subtitles in English, what do you do basically? Basically, what you do is you read. You kind of share your attention to what you are not supposed to, Because when you just do the listening exercise, you are focused on the listening. But when you put the subtitles on, you read. You are not 100% attentive to the listening itself. So normally you focus on the reading more. So when you remove the subtitles somehow, you're going to be all ears. And then it's going to be easier for you to understand. But at first, it's pretty much the same like wearing a pair of glasses. At first, everything seems to be confusing, but then you get used to it. And then you start understand more and more and more. That's the idea. So sometimes you can challenge. Remove the subtitles and just try to work on your listening. Because when you do that, you're going to be full attention. You're going to be you're going to be full attentive to the listening. This is one of the good practice you can have. All right, but today, as I told you, we are going to study the regular verb plus preposition. In other words, phrasal verbs. But how do native speakers combine the sound of ed with preposition? We saw last class that we can really have 3 ways to pronounce the ed. T, d, id. Oh, Fabio said t, but sometimes I saw a teacher say t, 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 t. It doesn't matter. It's not the letter T. It's the sound. Okay? So you have 3 ways. T, d, and id. We know that. One of the reason, the reason for that is depends on the last sound of the word. If you have voiceless or voiced. Again, let's recap. Repetition is part of the learning process. Voiceless is the ones that you don't need to use your voice because last means no voice. Automatically, you're not going to provoke vibration of vocal cords, and then you are not going to produce any hum, this kind of stuff. So it means that no vibration. The pronunciation of ed is going to be like t. Example: work, worked, work, because the last letter is like a. And the sound of letter K is k, 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 k. There's no vibration of vocal cords. You're going to have the ed like t, so worked. On the other hand, if the last letter produces vibration on the vocal cords, so then you have to change to d. So the ed is going to be like pronounced d. And also you can have the id. Id, yeah, it depends on the verb ends. If the verb ends in like actually with the letter or the sound of t and d, you add one more syllable. Id, like want, wanted. Then you can say, Fabio, can you please help me out? Because you told me that vowel sounds, they are voiced. It doesn't matter if you speak Portuguese or English. It's pretty much the same. Is that true? Yes, totally. But the consonants, though, I don't know. How can I identify if the consonants are a voiceless or a voiced? Obrigado por assistir esse vídeo. Não esqueça de curtir, compartilhar com seus amigos. Se foi útil para você, pode ser para seus amigos também. E ativar o sininho para mais atualizações. Te vejo no próximo vídeo.